Hello, welcome to this event on 10 ways to use AI in user onboarding. My name is Pulkit, one of the co-founders at Chameleon. Chameleon is a platform for building in-app experiences without coding. So you can build things like banners, callouts, checklists, microsurveys into your application, target them on the right page to the right user, and then leverage them to drive user engagement or feedback without coding. I'm excited to talk about 10 ways to use AI. We're going to cover a broad range of topics, and we'll kick off shortly. So thank you for joining. I'm based in Brooklyn. It's cold but sunny at least, which is nice. Nice change from London where I grew up, which is often cold and rainy and grey. But anyway, I'd love to kind of meet you. So feel free to share a quick intro in the chat based on kind of where you were calling in. Okay, I got muted. Hopefully I wasn't muted the whole time. If you can hear me, please say something in the chat. But excited to run the session with you. I'm Pulkit, one of the co-founders at Chameleon. If you can share a little intro in the chat for who you are, where you're dialing in from, what your product is, I'd love to know so I can adapt if necessary. Like I said, the session is recorded. We'll send you a recording afterwards, and feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'll try and answer them as we go, or I will try and answer them afterwards. Okay, so let's get going. As a quick intro to the session, we're going to focus on a broad case of ways to use AI to improve activation and conversion for user onboarding. The broad buckets are essentially analysis. So using AI to do some interesting analysis of data or content, and then also some creative use cases to generate messaging, etc. I'll move through them pretty quickly. We've got maybe just under 30 minutes, and there's 10 ideas, and then some bonus ideas for Chameleon. But I'll share the deck afterwards, and it's really designed to spark ideas, and it's not necessarily exact. You don't have to follow the exact playbook, but hopefully this gives you some ideas of how you can use AI in intelligent ways. And then we'll cover some of what's happening in Chameleon on AI towards the end. So that'll be some bonus content. Okay, let's get going. Okay, so the first use case is segment discovery through behavioral pattern mining. It's basically better understanding your audiences. And the current way you might be doing this is maybe just intuition or perception of the different types of audiences that you have, or you might be using something like demographics. Like, we've got people who are, or firmographics, like, companies, large companies and small companies, or marketers and designers. Like, you might be doing kind of high level variations of onboarding, but you can also get to the behavioral understanding. Or if you're doing a behavioral understanding, maybe you're running queries in your BI system or your spreadsheet. But what we can also do is have AI run the queries. So one example is to export some data from your analytics tool, including some data about users. So for example, user sign up date, and then some key data around whether they're activated. Now you can either use a proxy event or metric for that, or something around maybe paid or plan, similarly with churn, but some sense of like, was this user successful or not? And then pick some key events or key actions. For example, they completed a profile, or they invited a teammate, and then the values can be either yes or no, or 1 zeros, or it could be the actual count, like how many teammates they invited. So you set up some data, which you can export from your system. You send that into ChatGPT, and then you run this prompt, essentially asking it to identify a few non-obvious behavioral segments that differentiated activated from churn. So you're trying to figure out, like, okay, who were the successful users? What were their patterns? And that might give you some interesting insights. Like, what you might find out is that people who are successful require, typically invite a teammate at this time, or typically invite X teammates. And that can go towards what could be a magic number or magic metric. So that's pattern basis. Okay, we'll move on quick, like I said. So second is time to value optimization, which is understanding what you want to optimize and what's a key aha moment to drive users towards. Now, you might be doing it today through product intuition, through your own sense, your team sense and discussion of what is the most important aha moment, but actually you can use retention data as well to understand activation signals. So for example, what you could do is export a CSV again from an analytics tool around the user data, some user data where they retained, and it could be 30 days or 1 or 3 months or whatever retention you care about. And then pick your first key actions and then the timestamp for that action to have happened. So, project created, invite sent, what's the timestamp? So now you've got a CSV of users, whether they were retained or not, and their key moments when they did these actions. And then you can run the prompt around analyzing correlation between these key actions and the retention. And then you can ask it to rank actions by the correlation strength. So which actions correlate most strongly to retention? It's not assessing causation, like whether they cause it, but correlation is a good place to begin. And so once you can understand those key actions, then you know, okay, it's really important to drive these actions. And that's what you can focus any signposting during onboarding or friction removal, or even in terms of kind of customer success teams knowing what's important to do. So good understanding of aha moments. Okay. Let's keep going. Feature sequencing. So what features do you want to show to users at which moments? Or what's the order of features that you want to show? So similar to maybe the aha moments, but you might be giving people a tour of all of the features, and that's actually really inefficient. Typically, I do see welcome tours show off everything. We're against those kind of like show everything welcome tours, long tours. People click out of them, they dismiss them really quickly. Don't do that. Try to figure out which are the most important features. And so one way you can do this is looking at adoption data for retained users. So you look at rows as users and columns with features until days until first use. So again, very similar to the aha moment analysis. What's the most important aha moment? But looking at for all of your key features, maybe you have check your pricing page, like all the features listed. Maybe you have 20 features listed. When do people use them typically? And then running the prompt around which features are used first. What's the adoption sequence where when somebody uses X feature and then they use Y feature. Now that's really valuable because then when you're ever signposting Y feature, or you want to promote Y feature, or you want to then target it to people who've done X feature, and that way you can get your in-app experiences much more targeted to the right users who might likely care about feature Y, rather than doing broad brush approaches. So you're targeting all of your users promoting feature Y. That's inefficient. Inefficiency is bad because it means that people often will have negative actions of your in-app experiences, like they might dismiss them, they might ignore them. That creates a vicious cycle where people then dislike those and do less and less. So what we want to do is try to get the signal to noise really high for when you're promoting anything in product or on email, that the thing that you're promoting really does land with that user. And so once you figure out like which is the order of people adopting features, that can help you create better targeting for any in-app engagement. Okay. Onboarding debt audit. So essentially looking at what are the different onboarding experiences that you have, and maybe you have a fully native experience, but maybe you have like emails, maybe you have in-apps, maybe you have a bunch of other things that are adding clutter, and it's hard to review that or understand that. So here's a way: if you can export your onboarding experiences from whatever tool you use, and try to use kind of categories like when they were last edited, engagement data, so how much they were shown or completed. If you can get like an audience, a summary of those, and then you can send that sheet up into ChatGPT and you can ask it to audit things like overlapping experiences for content, low engagement, things that should be updated because they haven't been updated recently, if there's things that have been targeted again. So that is something you can do. Quick plug here is that we've actually built this into Chameleon. So you can now do an audit of your experiences within Chameleon, and we do it automatically for you. That's part of our Ranger agent. I'll show that to you later. But that Ranger agent is a new feature from Chameleon to help keep your workspace clean. But if you don't use Chameleon or you don't have that, whatever, just you can try to do it manually. Okay. Onboarding friction heat map analysis. So sometimes, maybe you're watching a bunch of session replays. Maybe you're, pretty good at that, or have a heat mapping tool. But sometimes you may not realize like which are the things that I should highlight. I sometimes notice in onboarding, people are highlighting things that don't need highlighting. They're really obvious and easy to understand, but people are highlighting them anyway because they think that's an important action. But that's not the problem. So it's really important to understand the actual problem. So you're only highlighting things that are effective. So the way you can do this is just take a screenshot of every onboarding step. And you can do this yourself. Just grab it, send it to ChatGPT, and then prompt it. Say you're a UX researcher, identify elements that would be confusing, spot unclear context or key CTAs. And so really simple way to just run an analysis using AI. And if, why not? It's low cost and it might help you understand where you might need to add some guidance or some useful content to incorporate. It's very similar to this. You can do this for competitors as well. So if you want to understand how you've got some competitors that are doing well or have good onboarding, you can do this pretty well. You can use something like Loom to record a competitor onboarding flow. When you record this, sign up for the competitor, have it running, and just talk through as much as you can, because we're going to be using the transcript here. So it'd be like, hey, I see this really great CTA. I like this copy because it teaches me what's coming next. I like this pattern. This was confusing. I'm not quite sure what to do next. So just talk through your thoughts as you're recording this Loom video, because that'll all get captured as really rich context in the transcript. Pull those transcripts together if you do multiple competitors, because it's hard to upload lots of docs, and then upload the doc into GPT or Claude, using the prompt to understand patterns, what are differentiators, what are gaps, and that can help you understand, hey, this is something that we can do better than others, or this is something that everyone's doing really well. Let's compare it versus ours to make sure we are equally good or as good. Okay, number 7, help content. So understanding what is the gap in our help content. Really simple, you start with support tickets. Now, some tools like we use Intercom, they will suggest things that you might want to add as help content. But help docs are so key because they are going to be the basis of a lot of agentic workflows. And that content is really, really important for AI. So it's really important to invest in your help documentation. You can review, you can download it if you can into a local file and use Claude Code as well. But essentially, if you want to use tickets, get tickets, and then try to filter to people who recently signed up. Now that might be within the first month if your onboarding is slow, or longer, or within the first 7 days, whatever. But try to filter down to support tickets from new users. And then once you've got that, try to have the format such that you've got a clear sign up date, and then the ticket content. It's important to have the ticket content in there as well. And then you can, again, have GPT analyze these tickets, group them into clusters, understand what are common issues or what are points of confusion, what is missing context from those people. And then that can really help you then generate help documentation. We're seeing that marketing teams are generating a lot of content for blog posts and blog, because they want AI to be able to digest that and surface that. I think help teams, product marketing teams, should be thinking in a similar vein for help documentation. Lots of help documentation, because the approach and channel is moving away from what was before, where you had to have an index of help documentation. The user had to kind of navigate, the user had to read and search, and it was quite hard to have too much complexity or a lot of content. Now we're moving to this where agents are doing all of that, and the user is just interacting with an agent, asking a question, the agent's giving the answer. The agents can consume a lot more. They can consume updates. They can consume better structure. So it's really important to invest in your help content to make sure that any agents, yours, support tickets, support agents, etc., are effective. Okay, re-engagement approaches. So referencing the cases where you might have an email to help someone complete a task. Let's say you signed up, but you didn't take X action. We find that in many cases, you might have slight variations. You might be A/B testing copy. But what we're not doing is we're not looking at quite different approaches. So here's an example. Figure out your activation steps and then for each of those, ask GPT to come up with different campaigns, but from different perspectives. So here are 3 that we can consider. Friction reducer. So assuming someone doesn't know everything or understand everything, and you're trying to explain how it works or how easy it is, which is one approach, and very different to value reinforcer, which is a reminder of why this is valuable, what this will help them accomplish, who will this help them become. And then third is alternative path, which is okay, if you don't want to do this, what's another way that you can achieve something similar? Or here's another workaround or an alternative feature to explore. And I think the benefit of thinking about these through these categories is it might really change some of your approach, which might be by default or by nature, friction reduction. Hey, this is how you do something. You might have screenshots in your email, do this, but it's missing the value. Or maybe it's very value forward, but it's missing the how do you actually do it or alternative. So I think using GPT to come up with alternatives to campaigns based on these kind of personas can really help. You maybe discover something that's more effective, more optimized than what you're currently trying to iterate on. Okay, persona-based messaging. So this is, not the newest idea ever, change, messaging based on persona. But here are some ways to do it, more effectively with AI. So you can use your existing message, and you can even set up a GPT that's designed for this specifically, so you can easily do it for multiple messages. But grab a message, maybe it's an important onboarding message, maybe it's a welcome message, and then have it identify ways to adapt it for different personas. Now, these are 3 basic personas: technical persona, as exec business persona, and a non-technical IC persona. But you can think about what might be your specific personas. Note that every product will have different personas. And beyond just the persona based around the attributes of the individual or company, like their role or their seniority, one other axis to play with in terms of persona is motivation. So I often see with products that there are at least 2 versions of the motivation axis. One is high motivation and intent, meaning they're ready to purchase, or they're actively evaluating, they're knowledgeable about the space, they may be switching from another product, or they've done their research and they're really ready to go deep. That persona is very different from the low motivation kind of discoveries level, where someone may have come across this product through some Twitter feed or someone's LinkedIn post, doesn't really know about it, wasn't part of their goal for this quarter or day, but they're just exploring, and maybe it'll be relevant for them next year. Maybe it'll give them some idea of how to do something differently. It's a very different persona than the high motivation intent. So you could even just split based on that axis, because they'll need different kinds of coaching, different kind of messaging, different kinds of email strategies. So really think about that, because you don't want to overwhelm the person who's high motivation. They need to get to something quickly. You want to get out of the way, or give them some signposts and be available with like self-serve resources when they need them. And then for the low motivation, you really want to coach them and handhold them a bit more to discover value and focus on value rather than focusing on them doing things and taking actions. So quite important to think about, and it could be an easy way to drive improvements in your onboarding and activation flow. Okay, number 10, before we talk a little bit about the Chameleon versions, it is localization beyond translation. So translation, if you've got users in different languages, then you can localize, which is fine. But you might want to actually also think about other optimizations in your UI for different cultures and different contexts. So you could use again, upload your screenshots and say, hey, I want to localize this for X geography or X language. But beyond that, beyond text, what else can I improve? And think about field length and what might be expectations, visual changes, social proof, interaction patterns. And sometimes there are differences. And you'll notice that products that are local to X country, India or Australia, might be quite different. And so it's an interesting exercise to go through, but might give you some quick wins on UI improvements or UI localizations. So take a breath. Feel free to, if you've got any feedback or any questions, please do leave it in the chat. Otherwise, let's talk a little bit about ways to use AI in Chameleon. So some of the ways today that you can use AI, you can generate copy for an onboarding experience or a tooltip from an existing help article. So you can just simply link to the help article, and it will use it to summarize to the right most valuable aspect inside of an experience or inside of a tooltip. You can create AI variants for in-app announcements for A/B tests. So let's say you've got one version, we make it really easy for you to A/B test and create an alternative version that will use AI to improve the copy, and then you can test those variations to see what works well. You can summarize microsurvey responses. If you run a microsurvey asking for feedback or asking for someone's intent or asking for something else, you can, all of the comments you can summarize to get into themes so you understand how to leverage those more effectively. You can record a video, just like you would record a Loom, talking about a feature or a workflow, and convert that into an interactive demo. That makes it really easy to share with people who don't have access to it yet, or who aren't willing to actually engage with it, or who don't want to watch a video. An interactive demo is an annotated set of screens that someone can click through. So in a way, they're kind of experiencing the product, but actually a very specific workflow, or a very specific process. And you can generate all of that automatically just by recording a video talking through the feature, which is awesome. And then we have this Ranger agent, which I mentioned, and Kirsty, thank you for linking in the chat. But a Ranger agent can clean up your workspace. And so what it can do is look for experiences that haven't been seen recently and ask you to unpublish them. It can improve the naming convention. So you've got some experiences without names. It can clean up those names so everything is ordered and organized. It can help you remove objects that are cluttering your workspace. Maybe there are segments that you've created but never used. Maybe there's themes that aren't being used. So it can help you remove those that clutter. It can help you identify teammates that aren't active and are taking up a seat. It's like, okay, how about we remove those teammates? They're not really around. Let's remove them and free up seats for other people. So it takes a bunch of these jobs. They're all suggestions to you in your governance hub. And then you can evaluate whether you want to act on them. And if you do, it's like a quick action, and you can, bulk change or bulk action those suggestions, or you can ignore them as well. So, and over time it'll learn to your account. But it's really important that, especially for some of our companies that have customers that have hundreds of experiences, large teams, multiple groups of people using Chameleon, it's really, really powerful to help reduce clutter, keep your workspace clean, and really easy to use and pleasant to work with it. And then one other thing, which is a sneak preview, is that we will have Chameleon's Copilot launching soon, which is going to be very exciting. It's going to be a really broad-based Copilot. We've been training it for some time now. It's got a lot of Chameleon historical context, best practices, etc. What you can do, you can use it to analyze existing experiences. Like, hey, how is this going? What could be better about this? It can make improvements. You're like, hey, I want to drive more towards this goal. What could I change? And it can tell you, but it can also make those improvements. It can create campaigns with multiple experiences to meet some goal you have. So if you want to, hey, I want to improve adoption of this feature, it will talk through that with you around personas, around key goals. It will do its own research and help and construct the experiences for you, which you can then tweak if you wanted. You'll be able to troubleshoot issues. It's like, hey, this isn't going as expected, or why is this broken? And then, of course, it'll be an advisor to you to learn about best practices if you want to level up on anything. So I'm very excited. This is already in beta, and we have had some positive feedback from some customers, but we'll be rolling it out to more customers soon in the next week, and then we'll be launching it in December. So look out for that. It's a really powerful way to use AI for in-app user onboarding experiences or other kind of user experiences in product. Okay, so we're about at time. There's a little bit of time for feedback. I want to make sure that I get some feedback from you. So if you can answer the poll, there should be a little option on the right to let me know, was this a good use of your time? Would you attend again? And if not, I'd love feedback. Totally fine. I'd love constructive feedback. But please take a second to answer that question. And while you do, I would love any feedback on the next question, which is what kind of content or features from Chameleon would you like to see from us? If you have any questions or thoughts, please drop them in the chat. I would certainly take them. And yeah, thanks, Jeffrey. Appreciate that you started using Ranger today. There is a oh wow, that's cool. There is a limitation of 10 suggestions per week. Part of the reason for 10 suggestions per week is that we have so many jobs and we'll be adding more jobs. We didn't want to overwhelm. Sometimes for each of those suggestions, you might have to go and dig and confirm that you want to act on it. If there's certain jobs that you want to expand, we can take feedback. There's no hard limit. We can adjust that in the back end. But I wouldn't want to give all of the items as suggestions, because you might have like 200 suggestions in one job. So that's why we came up with this like 10 limit. But I'd love to get feedback on that. So yeah, please let me know. Okay. If not, yeah, feel free to check out Chameleon's AI features, or let's connect on LinkedIn. So if you feel free to connect with me, I'm always happy to chat on LinkedIn as well. It's another another channel for us to engage on. Easy for me. And if you want to follow Chameleon, we share interesting updates and tips. Feel free to follow Chameleon. I think that's the right link. It may not be, but check that out, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Here's my link to connect with me. So thanks for joining. Appreciate your time. Hopefully this was useful, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. Yeah, and the next webinar, we're going to talk about Copilot in more depth. So if you're interested in Copilot, please hit that CTA and RSVP for that webinar. I'm looking forward to diving more deeply into that. So yeah, please check out that the Copilot webinar. Okay, bye for now.